Medieval India, page number 79, chapter number 8, Trade, Industry and the Merchants. With the consolidation of Delhi Sultanate, the improvement of communication and the establishment of second sound currency system based on the silver tanak and the copper dirham, there was a definite growth of trade in the country. This was marked by the growth of towns and town life. Ibn Battuta calls Delhi the largest city of eastern part of the Islamic world. He says that Daulatabad, Deogir equaled Delhi in size and index of growth of trade between north and south. The other important cities of the times were Lahore and Multan in the northwest, Kara and Lakhnauti in the east, Ahilwada, Patan and Kambe, Khambayat in the west. A modern historian says that on the whole, the Sultanate presents the picture of a flourishing urban economy. Such an economy must have necessitated commerce on large scale. Bengal and the towns in Gujarat were famous for their fine quality fabrics. Cloth of fine quality was produced in other towns as well. Kambe in Gujarat was famous for textiles and for gold and silver work. Sonargaon in Bengal was famous for raw silk, fine cotton cloth called muslin. There were many other handicrafts as well, such as leather work, metal work, carpet weaving, etc. Some of the new crafts introduced by the Turks included the manufacture of paper. The art of manufacturing paper had been discovered by the Chinese in the 2nd century. It was known in the Arab world around 5th century and traveled to Europe only in the 14th century. The production of textiles was also improved by introduction of spinning wheel. Cotton could be cleaned faster and better by the use of cotton carders bow, dhunia. But there is little doubt that most important was the skill of Indian craftsmen. Indian textiles had already established their position in the trade to countries on the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf. During this period, fine Indian textiles were introduced to China as well, where it valued more than silk. India imported high grade textiles, satin, etc., from West Asia, glassware, and of course, horses from China. From China, it imported raw silk and porcelain. India's foreign trade, both overland and overseas, was truly an international enterprise. Although the Arabs were dominant partners in the Indian Ocean trade, they had been by no means ousted the Indian traders, viz., the Tamils and the Gujaratis, both Hindu and Muslims. The coastal trade and trade between coastal ports and the North India was in the hands of Marwadis and the Gujaratis, many of whom were Jains. The Muslim Bora merchants also participated in this trade. The overland trade with Central and West Asia was in the hands of Multanis, who were mostly Hindus, and Khorsanis, who were Afghans, Iranians, etc. Many of these merchants had settled down in Delhi. The Gujarati and Marwadi merchants were extremely wealthy, and some of them, particularly the Jains, spent large sums for the construction of temples. Cambay was a great city in which many wealthy merchants lived. They were lofty houses built in fine stone and mortar with tiled roofs. Their houses were surrounded by orchards and fruit gardens, which had many tanks. These wealthy merchants and skilled craftsmen lived under luxurious life and were accustomed to good food and clothing. The merchants, Hindu and Muslims, were attended by pages bearing swords with silver and gold in work. In Delhi, the Hindu merchants rode horses with costly trappings, lived in fine houses, and celebrated their festivals with great pomp and show. Barani tells us that Multani merchants were so rich that gold and silver were to be to be found in abundance in their houses. The nobles were so spendthrift that every time they wanted to hold a feast or a celebration, they had to run to the houses of Multanis in order to borrow money. In those days, travel was always risky due to robbers and dacoits and various marauding tribes. However, the royal roads were kept in good shape and there were many sarais on the way for comfort and safety of the travelers. In addition to the royal road from Peshawar to Sonargaon, Muhammad Tughlaq built a road to Daulatabad. There were arrangements for post being carried quickly from one part of the country to another. This was done by relays of horses and even more efficiently and quickly by the runners who were posted every few kilometers in towers which were built for the purpose. The runner continually clanged a bell as he ran so that the man on the next relay may be able to see him from the tower and get ready to take his burden. We are told that by the means of these relays, fresh fruits were obtained for the Sultan from Khorasan. When Muhammad Tughlaq was at Daulatabad, which was 40 days' journey from Delhi, he regularly used to receive the Ganga water for drinking purposes by the means of these relays. Economic life was quickened in the period by the improvement of communications and the growth of trade both overland and by sea. The Turks introduced or popularized a number of new crafts and techniques. We have already referred to the use of iron stirrup and a large scale use of armor both for horse and the rider, for heavy and light cavalry preferred by the new rulers. This led to the growth of metallurgical industry and metal crafts. An even more important development was the improvement of rahat, miscalled the Persian wheel, so that water could be lifted from a deeper level of irrigation. The other crafts included paper making, glass making, and spinning wheel, and an improved loom for weaving. Mention may also be made of the introduction of a superior mortar which enabled the Turks to erect magnificent buildings based on the arc and dome. Not all these crafts were new, but their expansion and improvement based on the legendary skill of Indian craftsmen and agricultural growth were two of the most important factors which made the second half of the 14th century a period of growth and relative affluence. Thank you everyone for tuning in. In the next part, we'll start with the Sultan and the nobles on page number 80. Thank you. All the best for exams and do share and subscribe the channel for more videos like this. Thank you everyone.